champion, a 5-time United States champion, 2-time TV champion, 3-time tag team champion, a WCW Triple Crown winner, the co-winner of the 1994 Royal Rumble, and Pro Wrestling Illustrated's most popular wrestler of the year in 1993. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my esteemed honor to welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the total package, Lex Luger. Joining us.
My pleasure.
Real quick announcement before we get the panel underway. The Steiner brothers are actually going to be doing their photo op at this time. So those of you looking to get a picture with the Steiner brothers, head on over there. But here at the table, we've got Lex Luger. Now, I imagine, I asked the same kind of thing to Kane earlier. This is like the first really big wrestling convention, giant event in a long time. How does it feel to be back and doing something like this in front of the fans again here, Lex?
Man, it's great with what's happened the past year. Wrestling's like one big family. It's very unique, and it's great to see it out again. It's been very exciting.
So I know you've got a lot of history here in Florida as a wrestler. If I'm not mistaken, you made your debut in Daytona Beach?
Yeah. I did.
Give us any early Florida memories starting out here. Is it good to be back here in Jacksonville, or not so much?
Oh, it's great. It's a great place to be. I did make my debut in Florida my first little over a year in wrestling, and got trained by Hiro Matsuda. He trained a lot of the top stars, including Hulk Hogan. So this is a great way to break into the wrestling, and I have many fond memories here in Florida, for sure. Special place for me.
Now, I know a lot of people have asked you about your name, Lex Luger. Taken, of course, from inspiration from Lex Luthor, the Superman villain. I'm kind of curious as to why you...
First name.
Right. So, why did that character in particular? He's more of a brain guy. You were always known as a body guy. So why Lex Luthor as an inspiration for your ring name?
Well, the origination of my name happened almost instantaneously when I was training for wrestling. I was trying to think up of really cool names for wrestling. I thought, well, at the time there was this huge TV series, you young people remember, but it was Magnum PI, so everybody just called him Magnum. So I figured, because I have German heritage, Luger is a German automatic revolver, so if Magnum's good, I'll go by Luger. But they said I needed a first name, so I grew up a big Superman fan, so I thought if Lex went well with Lex Luger. So I kind of thought of that, but first time I went out on TV, on Champions Wrestling Florida, they didn't have a name for me. I was ready to walk out. They go, "What's your name?" I go, "I don't have one." But I had thought about that name before I made my debut on television, so I kind of tentatively raised my hand because Matsuda told me to be seen and not heard as a new guy. In other words, work hard, keep your mouth shut. And I said, well, I got a name. I said, Lex Luger. And they kind of looked at each other like, I think they kind of thought, well, this won't amount to anything anyways. He's probably never be on TV again, so we'll just call him Lex Luger. So that's how the name Lex Luger was born, and that ended up lasting a little longer than probably they thought.
I'd say so, for sure. Now, you mentioned championship wrestling from Florida. In those early days when you were first starting out, you got a chance to work with the likes of Kevin Sullivan. I know Kevin's here in the house today. We're going to talk with him a little bit later. You got to wrestle Ric Flair to a 60-minute draw. You had a steel cage match with Bruiser Brody, and this is all within just a couple of years of you just starting out. What was it like for you to be thrown into the mix along with some of these very legendary, very esteemed names, even at the time when you were just really starting out in the business?
Yeah, it was a dramatic rise to the top. My first big match was with Wahoo McDaniels, and who was a legendary wrestler and football player. And Matsuda told me he was going to wrestle me, and I'd only been wrestling for 2 weeks. And to say the very least, Wahoo was kind of hesitant. What am I going to do with that guy? He doesn't even know how to wrestle. And Matsuda challenged him that if you're as good of an accomplished veteran wrestler as you are, you can have a good match with a broomstick. I don't know if I was that flattered that he compared me to a broomstick, but we ended up having a decent match. So, yeah, I got to wrestle with Jesse Barr for my first big title, the Southern Heavyweight title. I think 3 weeks into my career. I'm sorry, 3 months into my career. It really was, I tell you, my career for 15 years was kind of like a 4th of July fireworks for 15 years. It was really a rapid ascent to the top. Looking back now, very, very unusual. And got to work with my first match. You mentioned Ric Flair was an hour. I was so nervous. I'd never met Ric Flair before. He came in the building, the limo, with his custom-made suit and his Rolex and his diamond rings, and somehow he got me through an hour match. I had no clue how I could actually go through an hour match. As we all know, Rick is the master ring tactician and technician, so he got me through. So that was another fond memory that he brought up.
We had a chance to talk with Ricky Steamboat 2 years ago at the first River City Wrestling Con. He said much the same thing. Rick, we'll get you going here for 60 minutes. We'll make it happen. So it sounds like that was very much the case for you. Well, shortly after you transitioned, you went over to Jim Crockett Promotions. Speaking of Ric Flair, you quickly became an official member of the Four Horsemen. You started feuding with Nikita Koloff, who I understand is one of your closest friends in the business. Is that correct? Nikita Koloff?
Not at the time, no. We're
Not at
big
the time.
friends now, yeah.
Yeah, you guys do some work together more recently, right?
Well, we do stuff together. We do ministry together. I do evangelism now.
The man camp, right?
Talk about a new lifestyle, yeah.
I mean, I think that's interesting, and I think that's something great for the fans to hear
You and I
about.
weren't really friends back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched an interview recently. He made it sound like you were, but I mean, it's very competitive coming up, and two big guys feuding in the middle of that ring. I can see how that might go that way. Over the next couple of years, working with Jim Crockett and WCW, became a multi-time United States champion. You even picked up the world title at the Great American Bash. Before going on a feud with Ron Simmons. I know Ron's here today as well.
Oh, yeah.
Rick Steiner, Sting, your first WCW run. You have any good fond memories you want to talk to us about in that first run through WCW?
Yeah, but when you talk about the Horsemen, what an opportunity. Come in as one of the Four Horsemen. Tully and Arn and Nate and JJ, and they really mentored me and spent a lot of time and effort me in and out of the ring. Another guy who was very influential, big time, was Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. Dusty gave me my finish, the backbreaker, and it became the torture rack. Taught me how to do interviews. Dusty used to coach me up before I'd go out every time and tell me what to say and how to say it. And looking back, I had a lot of help from a lot of really good, talented veteran guys back then. So yeah, it was a very, very, very fond memories of that time period.
So what led to your exit from WCW? You quickly jumped over with Vince McMahon, but you didn't go to the WWF right away. You went to the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation, which is something maybe a lot of younger fans don't know much about. What was that process like, transitioning out of WCW and going into the WBF and then WWF shortly thereafter?
That's a good question. A lot of people ask me that. WCW, at the time, before I went to WWE, it was a dream of mine to also wrestle in WWE. And when the opportunity came, WCW was in kind of a down period then, management-wise. And a lot of the the locker room atmosphere wasn't real good, and I had a year left in my contract. I went to them and thought I'd take a year off and maybe do something in fitness or working out other than WCW wrestling, to take a little break. I wasn't planning on getting out of wrestling. I wanted to take a little bit of a break for maybe a year. I was traveling and wrestling over 300 matches a year at the time, so I was just kind of burned out, physically more than anything. And I wanted a year to kind of refresh, and it was hard keeping on the road that much, my training and my nutrition, and I was really struggling at the time. So I thought maybe a year off of being at home and training and recovering a little bit would be a bolster to my career long term. So WCW let me out of last year my contract, but then I ended up talking with WWE, and they said, why don't you, if you want to train for a year, why not get paid for it, come into the WBF as a bodybuilder. So I jumped at that chance. And then a year later, my contract was up with WBF. I ended up naturally signing with WWE, my first contract, which at the time I think was a 2-year contract.
So when you came onto the WBF, that was not the initial intent, was to be a part of the WWF? That was something that developed a little bit later?
Oh yeah, it was definitely, when I agreed to sign a 1-year contract with the Bodybuilding Federation, they already had the, after that arrangement of to sign a 2 or a 3-year contract with WWF at the time.
So let's talk about one of the most famous clips of you in action that happened shortly thereafter, after you transitioned fully into the World Wrestling Federation at that time. Let's talk about the USS Intrepid. It was on July the 4th, 1993, Yokozuna's Body Slam Challenge. For those of you that are younger fans and haven't gone back to see this, go check this out. Lex comes in on a helicopter after people have tried and failed to slam the 500-plus pound Yokozuna. The place erupts. What was it like for you to come in on a helicopter, have this hero's welcome? Talk to us about July 4th of '93.
Well, it was definitely set up like only Vince McMahon and WWE can set things up. On July 4th, on a beautiful hot summer day. I mean, but to be honest with you, it was, until it actually happened, it was very nerve-wracking. I didn't tend to be the real nervous type, but I was very nervous because we did a walkthrough the week before at WWE headquarters, but they didn't let me actually slam Yokozuna. They just wanted us to walk through it and get the footwork down because they didn't want me to slam him and risk him getting hurt. I remember thinking at the time, you don't want him to get hurt. I'm the one that's going to have a hernia trying to hoist up. It was actually 627 pounds. I saw him on a scale one time. So I was extremely nervous because it's live, no second takes. I didn't want to blow it. So first of all, the helicopter ride in scared me. I'd never been in a helicopter before. So I'm already nervous. Then I get in the ring. They want me to wear jeans with a red, white, and blue shirt on and cowboy boots. And the cowboy boots had no tread on the bottom, so I felt like I was on ice skates. Now I was really nervous. So when I got nose to nose with Yokozuna, he had to calm me down and say, he was one cool Samoan brother. He said, no problem, but just get a wide stance, I'll do the rest. So once I slammed him, everybody goes, wow, you knew you were going to slam him? I go, yeah, you were a really good actor. You acted so excited. I go, I was so relieved and so excited that I slammed him. I go, that was legit. The emotion I showed in the crowd was they were pumped. They'd been out in the hot sun for hours, and they got so excited. So it was definitely a great memory, and it was a real adrenaline rush for sure.
I mean, you were a big guy, but I don't know how many people really follow fitness training and all that. I mean, 600 pounds in the form of a human body is different than working out in the gym. So I could understand, like, the trepidation, being nervous about it, especially having no tread on the shoes.
Yeah. I mean, Yoko, I call him Yokozuna, Yoko for short. We became very good friends, a great guy. And I used to wrestle him a lot, and on like a long tour in Europe, we'd goof around the ring a little bit at the lockup. And I could bench almost 600 pounds back then. But I'd try to shove Yoko around, he'd laugh, he'd take me into the corner, set me up with a turnbuckle like I was a little 3-year-old child. I mean, there's weight room strength, and then there's 627 pounds of Samoan bad you know what, and man, he was powerful.
Again, if you guys have not seen that clip, that's something I wish we had it queued up that you should go back and check out. It is worth a look. We're getting close to the anniversary, July 4th, so you'll want to do that. Now, famously after that, you jumped inside and took a trip around the country in the old Lex Express. Now, I've heard that maybe not have been your most favorite experience, but I know for fans, for kids growing up that were watching at the time, seeing Lex Luger tour around the country in the big Lex Express was a really, really awesome thing on television. Any fond memories or any memories you want to share? Maybe not so fond about Lex Express.
A lot of fond memories. They had me going from 5 in the morning on radio shows to 2 or 3 autograph sessions per day on the noon weather guy and local television, all the big markets and cities. They bused me. I only flew a couple times. I was on that bus pretty much all over the country, so the fans were great. There was a lot of excitement leading up to SummerSlam. It was very well done. I love that. I appreciate it. But once again, I was going like 40-something days with maybe 1 or 2 days off from sunrise to midnight and still trying to go to the gym at the end of the day and we get a workout in leading up to SummerSlam. So some of the clips people see, they go, "You didn't look like that excited." I go, I was fighting fatigue. But you know, we can be fatigued and it can be a good fatigue. I was pretty wiped out by the time I got to Detroit, mentally and physically, but it was a great, Lex Express was a great experience, a great tour. The fans were great, and I have many, many really fond memories and experiences from it. No doubt about it. Overall, very, very positive experience.
Did you have all the necessary tools and accoutrement and everything to stay comfortable? And I mean, you mentioned the nutrition part. I don't know if a lot of people realize that either. Like, it's not like you could just pop in the drive-thru after a show and then stay looking like you did. But with Lex Luger, you have to eat very particularly. You have to have your meals timed. You need a certain amount of protein. You got to look at all your macronutrients. How did you manage to keep up with it in the midst of all that? I know you said you were tired, but
protein bars and protein shakes.
Simple answer. The key to life.
I've already got 1 meal a day in back then. The rest was all protein bars and protein shakes.
Now, after your WWF run, you transitioned back to WCW. You showed up on the very first episode of Monday Nitro. It shocked the world. I mean, it's something that if you guys have gone back on the WWE Network and watched the Monday Night Wars, they highlight very, very majorly at the end of that first episode. What was that like? What was the reaction? Did Vince give you a call? I know that was kind of a thing that he didn't really have much of a heads up on.
No, the agreement for me to go back into WCW, the only people who knew were Eric Bischoff, Sting, and I think Hulk Hogan knew. So when I walked out on that Monday night, I went directly off of television in WWF. I had no idea that Monday Night Wars were going to evolve like they did, but looking back, once again, to be a part of something from the very start, being like the honor and privilege of being like the first big surprise in the Monday Night Wars was pretty special. I didn't like leaving WWE the way I did. I would have rather worked out a notice because Vince and I always had a good relationship. He was always very good to me when I was there. But Eric Bischoff wanted to be a surprise if I came, so that was one thing that wasn't the best part of it, but at all, I felt bad about that. But it was definitely, especially in retrospect, a huge moment for me in my career.
Speaking of huge moments, we only have 10 or 12 minutes left, so we want to make sure that the fans here in Jacksonville have a chance to ask you some questions. So Brandon here is going to walk, and we're going to find some folks that maybe haven't gotten some mic time yet today that want to ask Lex Luger some questions.
This young man right here, and we'll work with whatever.
What was your favorite match ever?
My favorite, what was the
What
question?
was your favorite match ever?
Oh, wow.
That's a good one.
Well, I had almost 5,000 matches in 15 years, so averaging almost 300 a year. Let me think. My first big world title match with Ric Flair in Baltimore was a big one. I didn't win the title, but it was a big one. Right after I left the Horsemen. The SummerSlam match with Yoko was a big one. My match with Nitro against Hulk Hogan when I won the world title in '97. That was a great moment. But my favorite match is maybe lesser known. And the Steiner brothers are right over there, but Sting and I, in one of our pay-per-views, I think it was in the early '90s, wrestled Rick and Scott Steiner, who were good guys, and Sting and I at the time were good guys, in a tag match. Everybody thought us both being good guy tag teams was going to be kind of not so good a match to watch, but Sting and the Steiner brothers put together an amazing match. Everybody thought it was going to be a real stinker, and we blew the roof off that place. If you can go back and watch it, look up Steiner's brothers and Sting and Lex. After that match, we felt so good because we were kind of still the new guys, and Rick, Flair, and Arnold thought, and Tully back were laughing. They thought they were going to have a horrible match, and we lit the place up. So that was really felt good. We had a great time doing it. We just went out there and threw all our best stuff at each other, and that was probably one of my favorite matches. You can go back and watch that one. I'll always remember that one.
That's a great answer. It was actually because of that match I tried to Frankenstein my brother. You know what?
Yes, sir. When I was 8 years old, I got in a fight with a dude and I torture racked him. Yeah, it worked, so thank you for that.
It's a true submissional acquire, right?
But my question is, can you tell us any real life locker room heat stories?
Locker room heat stories?
Like animosity in the locker room, real life?
Well, from what I hear, I was a walking heat machine, so not anything particular. I could just walk in the locker room and I had heat. So I think I was one of the first guys to get a guaranteed contract for money in wrestling. That was like major heat. I had a tendency to come across as very confident, I called it. Some would say arrogant back in that day. So with the big guaranteed contract, and when I walked in the locker room, they said I was very full of myself, not lacking confidence. So little did I know I was like a walking heat machine from what I'm told. So back then I definitely was. So nothing in particular. They said I was very good at it.
Every time you hear a rumor about yourself, it's like, geez, what did I do next? You got a question?
Remember that you with the Yokozuna and why something?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
You with the Yokozuna and why something?
Right.
And he said,
Is there a question in there? Not to put you in the spot, but
what was your most dangerous match in WCW?
my most
Dangerous match in WCW.
I would say every time I wrestled, we're good friends, Stan Hansen. I had all these cowbells match with him, and that cowbell Stan Hansen had was real jagged with metal. He used to cut me open with that thing all the time accidentally. He was like a train wreck in there because people don't know what he meant, but Stan Hansen had extremely limited vision, very poor eyesight. So every night I wrestled with him, I was so nervous he was going to gaff me open with that belly carry around. So That was maybe some of the most dangerous matches I had.
Lex Luger, I have a question to ask you.
Yes, sir.
How old were you when you wanted to be a wrestler?
That's a good question. I was actually a football player who always wanted to be a football player, but I saw that wrestling and Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and sold out arenas, and I decided that that might be something cool to look into. And so I really, the first time I used to watch it with my grandfather when I was a little kid. My grandfather and my dad said I was a huge wrestling, I never thought of being a wrestler, I thought I'd be a football player, but when I saw that in the off season, I decided to try to be a wrestler. I met Hiro Matsuda, the rest was history, so really not until I was in my mid-20s that I seriously considered being a wrestler as a career. I started my first match, I think, when I was 27.
I'm going to assume that you want to be a wrestler, correct, young man?
Oh yeah, look at him, he's intense.
I mean, the way he just took
going to
control
train right now.
He's gonna be a heel, he just blew you off.
Yeah. He's already a bad guy.
He's going to train.
Don't ever give up on that dream, man. You got a question?
Uh-oh, he's back.
He said you will not want to be a wrestler, right? That's the man. We got a
He wants to be a wrestler.
right here. Let's go. He's learning from the great team today and never seen a wrestler about it.
Any good Kurt Hennig or Owen Hart rib stories? I've heard about maybe Kurt Hennig tearing the tassels off your trunks as
What did ever end with Kurt? The first match I had with Kurt Hennig, I was in the Madison, my first time in Madison Square Garden, and I told him, we called a spot where his sunset flipped me, and he pulled my wrestling tights down around my ankles. So there in my big debut in Madison Square Garden, bare butt. Kurt was non-stop. Owen was the master of the intricate, well thought out rib. He and Davey Boy pulled out an arena with me and had to set up with the police that they would pull me over for a traffic violation and handcuff me outside my car. And the police went along with it in Charleston, South Carolina. So I could go on and on. It was a blast, but you never knew what was coming next with those guys. They were relentless ribbers.
All right, guys, we got time for one more question, and then if you have any more questions for Mr. Luger himself, he will be at the table right behind you, so feel free to walk up with an autograph and ask any question you want. Final question.
You were always an inspiration to me because I played football, and then instead of going to wrestling, I went to the Marine Corps.
Wow, thank you.
I actually followed the path, and I was wondering, which transition did you find harder, becoming a wrestler or becoming a man of God?
Good question.
Well, I'd have to say it was definitely being a wrestler because I can't take credit for becoming a man of God. God does that. And I met Jesus on April 23rd of 06, and it was already done for me at the cross by Jesus. So that was nothing I can take credit for. So he did the transition for me by his grace and mercy. So thank you. That's a great question.
It was. We got a lot of great questions from our fans here today. Lex, before you go, I got one other question for you. I know just a couple months ago, there was an interesting exchange on social media with you and Mick Foley. Mick had some really nice things to say about you.
Yeah.
Is this the first time you guys have had a chance to see each other at an event since?
I think it was, yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit on social media, but yeah, it was very, very cool for Mick to do something like that. Although Mick's a great guy and has a great heart for the fans and for the business, and for him to say those nice things about me, I was really honored, and I'm very thankful Mick did that.
He did, and if you guys don't know what we're talking about, Mick really wrote a nice long essay about all the reasons that we should see Lex Luger in the WWE Hall of Fame sooner rather than later, and you heard a bunch of great reasons why right here today at the River City Wrestling Con. Lex Luger, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
everybody.
Give it up one more time, ladies and gentlemen, the total package.